We've got a big group with us today. As Ruth said, for those that don't know, I'm Bill Zish, class of 1979, and I'm currently the president of the alumni board. So here to welcome you. We've got a big group, big attendance, but I can tell you that on campus, as I think John mentioned, the campus woke up today. I got onto campus this morning. There is a traffic jam back onto 6th Avenue as all the students are trying to offload and move in. Again, I think for the second year in a row, the largest class that we've had, first year class, it's about 1,500. Still highly qualified, but we just have had a higher yield for admissions. And so we got a big group coming in. They finished up the 3rd Orediger camp this morning. About 400 students up at the Snow Mountain Ranch by Winter Park. And so throughout the summer, about half of the entering class attended Orediger camp, which is just a great new tradition and an introduction for new students. For those of you like myself that didn't get to do that, it's a great experience for them. So glad to have you all here. John Bradford's gonna have a discussion today. We're very much looking forward to it on the Global Energy Futures Initiative. Any of the questions that you might have sent in with your RSVPs, we've gotten to John. I think he'll address those, and if any come up, there's going to be, I think, good amount of time today for some Q&A. And as Ruth has already done, this program is recorded. Just really glad to have everyone here. This is one of the larger RSVPs we've had, over 105. We've got 46 alumni signed up, and hopefully all of them are on the line, and that was distributed very evenly. Of course, all of our decades. We got the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s, and a couple 2021s online. So welcome to everyone. And I'll just welcome John to our program. John Bradford has been at mine since 2017, and he has served as the geophysics department head back until 2019, the vice provost and dean from 2019 to 2020, and he is currently vice president for global initiatives and heads the Office of Global Initiatives and Business Development. He is the driving force behind mine's Global Energy Futures Initiative, and he's going to review that with us today. As I said, we've got a high turnout. There's been, I know he's going to be giving an update. There's been a few changes to the Global Energy Futures Initiative, GEFI. I'm aware of that because I actually am directly involved in the minerals and metals node of GEFI. So I know there's some changes. Hopefully we're going to have time for some good interaction and discussions. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, John.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. I'll just add a couple of points about all the students on campus. So our yield, so this was the percentage of students that actually accepted their admission, increased by 7%, around 7% this year, which according to our admissions office is completely unprecedented in higher ed and in their experience. So whatever Mines is doing, we seem to be putting out something that is still in high demand. So great to see that. We're in a better position than a lot of other universities around the country. So I'm going to start the presentation with a short video, and then I'll talk for about 10 minutes or so. Many of you on here probably have seen a version of the GEFI presentation in the past. So this is going to be a little bit different than previous ones. And if you didn't see this in the past, I'll still give you a similar kind of overview. All right, so this video that I'm going to show is a video that my office produced together with the foundation, and it summarizes the initiative.
Energy. It is always changing, evolving, guiding us to greater possibilities. A constant force that can never be stopped. The most profound progress occurs when great minds take the reins to create new energy possibilities. Universities play a key role in energy advancement. Yet none can match Colorado School of Mines' superpower, unparalleled expertise across the full spectrum of energy disciplines. Mines is uniquely qualified to create solutions that advance the world's energy system. Minerals and metals, oil and gas, water, renewable energy, carbon capture utilization and storage. When it comes to energy, Mines' track record is exceptional. For the past 150 years, the university has earned its reputation by solving tough scientific and engineering problems at the intersection of Earth, energy, and environment. This strength makes Colorado School of Mines the perfect institution to fuel the Global Energy Future Initiative. GEFI is an industry-driven platform that addresses the world's call for a net zero energy future. Through multiple avenues, GEFI utilizes the university's collective knowledge to support a data-driven, scientific approach to shape the global energy future. And through this unwavering commitment, Mines harnesses the university's world-class expertise to implement systems thinking across multiple sectors, establish interdisciplinary collaboration, and transform research into action. We know the challenges. We know the stakes. We know it takes dedicated minds connecting with one another to design an ever-evolving and environmentally responsible system to overcome all obstacles. The types of minds that have been connecting and satisfying growing global energy demands since 1874. Now it's your turn to connect. Keep the energy flowing to find new collaborative solutions. Keep the energy evolving to make an energy future that works all over the planet. Keep the energy thriving by being part of the Mines Global Energy Future Initiative. Join us today.
All right, so the Global Energy Future Initiative is, as the video indicated and as the title of it says, it's about the future of energy globally. Before I talk about that, I wanted to talk a little bit about how we got here and how we came to the conclusion that this initiative was something that Mines needed to create and something that we should take a leadership role in. So I'm going to step back. This is about 7 years ago. This is at the International Petroleum Technology Conference that was in Doha, Qatar, and I attended that at that time. And that was the week of December 7th, 2015. And you may recall, so that was the same week that the accords were taking place in Paris that led to the International Climate Agreement, which said that countries would take steps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions over time. So that sort of places it in a little bit of context. The group that you see here was a group of CEOs that were part of a panel session that was put together as part of that conference. So there's the CEO of Aramco, CEO of Shell, CEO of Qatar Petroleum, CEO of Total, and the CEO of ConocoPhillips. And each of those CEOs, as part of that panel session, made a very clear and strong statement about CO2 emissions in particular, that CO2 emissions from human activities were causing warming of the climate, and that this was something that needed to be addressed, and that their companies would be not only acknowledging that, but looking to take a role in leading a transition or a transformation of the world's energy economy into one that managed its carbon emissions differently in the future. And of course, since that time, and I would say accelerating in the last couple of years, those companies and many other companies around the world have taken steps or made pledges that they are going to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. So most every oil and gas company at this point has a similar pledge, and here are a few examples here. Most every industry around the world has made a similar pledge, and you can see those, a few of those others here, and that includes the mining industry. So last year, 28 CEOs of the world's largest mining companies announced collectively a net zero carbon emission pledge by 2050. So this is very much an industry-driven initiative globally. And of course, Mine's MO is really producing the knowledge and the students that industry needs to meet its objectives. You'll note on here that the employers you see here are large employers of Mine's graduates. And of course, many of the other largest employers of Mine's graduates have made similar kinds of pledges. Okay, so if the world is committed to making such a change, what are some of the things that we have to think about as part of that? So future energy needs, we know that we have a growing global population. There's significant energy demand that comes along with that, and that energy demand is going to continue to grow. So how can we meet that demand in a way that's sustainable and improves health and prosperity for communities, while at the same time trying to meet these pledges that the corporate world is making and that governments around the world are making to get to a point of net zero greenhouse gas emissions? Well, we know that energy use correlates with quality of life. The chart over on the right-hand side is one example of that. There are many others. So quality of life index on the vertical axis and energy use per person on the horizontal axis, and separated by country. And so, of course, the more developed countries are further up on the line there, further towards the right and further up with an improved quality of life. And one of the goals that we should have in all of this is to move more of the dots, more of the world further up the scale to improve quality of life for everyone, while at the same time reducing our energy use overall to make that goal more attainable. So Mine's Global Energy Future Initiative, I wanted to point out first the 6 hubs that go around the circle over on the right-hand side. So we have expertise in oil and gas, minerals and metals, of course, clean water, carbon capture, utilization, sequestration, low carbon and renewable energies, and then the supply chains that link all of those things together. This particular combination of expertise that we have at Mines is very unique for a university. Looking at a couple of other things, so you probably all are aware of you know, some of the rankings that we have and the elite status that Mines enjoys in the world of energy education and research. This year we attained R1 status, so that's a top tier research university. We are ranked consistently very highly as one of the top engineering schools in the United States. And then this one you may not have seen before, but we're the #3 ranked energy university in the United States by the American Energy Society. And that's just behind Caltech and Carnegie Mellon. So we're very well recognized and very well positioned to take a leading role as the world energy economy is in transition. So the key goals of the initiative, first of all, are working with external partners to conduct groundbreaking relevant research to solve some of the big technical problems that are associated with the energy system in general. And those external partners include governments and corporations and other universities around the world. Key element is bringing Mine's students and developing them into leaders who can see the big picture. To solve this big energy challenge that the world has is very complex. If you perturb any one part of the system, so you could think about perturbing the metals and minerals supply, or perturbing the supply of low carbon and renewable energy, or perturbing the supply of oil and gas, as we're seeing right now in particularly apparent in Europe with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, then you perturb all the other parts of the system. So it's very complex, it's very interconnected. And if we're going to develop realistic, practical solutions to solve the problems that the world would like to have solved, then we need people who can see the big picture, and those are going to be the ones who lead us through this transition in the future. And a key element of the initiative is public outreach, communicating to policymakers, communicating to our industry partners, and communicating to the public. And a big part of that communication is trying to make sure that we get past some of the political rhetoric and understand better what some of the challenges are and some of the limitations are as we're trying to make big changes to the energy economy. So I'll just talk through that briefly, and then I'll wrap up and leave it open for questions. So of course, there's a big push to move to low carbon and renewable energy sources, but that comes with a cost. So nothing comes for free. And if we make a big transition of our energy system to low carbon and renewable energy, that places a huge demand on the minerals and metals supply. And that is a big barrier. No matter how much we want to make this transition to low carbon and renewables, the raw materials required to make that happen is a roadblock that will limit how quickly that can happen. So that's just a reality that's in the system. A quick example, so BHP is one of our partners in the Global Energy Future Initiative. They've given us so far about $500,000 to work on this. BHP, as you may or may not know, is the world's largest producer of copper. And their goal is to increase their copper production by a factor of 2 by 2030. Many of the projections, primarily because of this push to transition to low carbon and renewable energy sources, are that the demand for copper will increase by a factor of 10. So BHP's statement is that a factor of 2 is a stretch goal for the copper industry, but one that may be achievable, one that's realistic. So that's just one example of the huge challenge that's there, and speaks a little bit to what the barriers are. So if we have that barrier that's going to limit how quickly any such transition could occur, we know that we're going to continue using oil and gas for a very long period of time into the future. So how can we make sure to do that sustainably? So part of it is managing our carbon differently than we have in the past. I'll talk about that in a minute. Another part is using more data science to make our field operations and production more efficient. And another part is also using those same sorts of tools to manage greenhouse gas emissions in oil and gas operations, including methane, which is, as you are probably aware, a stronger greenhouse gas over the short term than CO2 is. So if we're looking to manage our CO2 emissions differently than we have in the past, carbon capture, utilization, and sequestration is the set of technologies that enables us to do that. And at Mines, we have expertise in a couple of areas. So on the capture side, we have folks working in chemistry and in chemical engineering on different capture technologies, specifically metal organic frameworks, which are solid state capture membranes, or metal oxides that are also useful for capturing carbon at point sources. So that's one area. We also have a group of researchers who are working in partnership with NREL on capture with biocapture, and this is primarily with algae. So growing algae, they capture the carbon, and then certain types of algae can be grown, and those algae can be turned into other products like building materials, for example. On the storage side, we have one of the premier groups in the US and probably in the world on geologic storage. And so the same sets of expertise that make us really good at petroleum engineering and geology and geophysics also make us very good at CO2 storage. So that's one of the key areas where we have expertise. So that's just one part of the equation of managing our emissions differently. The other part is, of course, low carbon and renewable energy sources. And so we have expertise in several areas there here on campus. So we're one of the premier institutions for hydrogen systems, hydrogen in all its forms, blue, green, yellow hydrogen, all of those varieties. We have a great expertise in extracting hydrogen from different input sources, utilizing that hydrogen in different ways as an energy source itself. We also have expertise in geothermal. Will Fleckenstein, who I saw on the call here, is leading a large DOE-funded project called Forge. He's leading the mines component of that. That's focused on utilizing some of the same tools and technology that are useful in the oil field for enhanced geothermal production. And then, of course, we have expertise in nuclear engineering here as well. So that's a key element. You might be wondering why we have water in this list, but there's, of course, a big overlap between water that's used for industrial operations or wastewater that's produced by industrial operations, and then the way that that impacts communities and water use for human consumption or agriculture. So, of course, oil and gas produces a lot of wastewater. It also uses a lot of water, particularly in fracking operations. So how can we manage that water and balance the other needs that we have? And so we have faculty that are working on treating the wastewater so that it could be used for other things like agriculture, for example. There are regulatory conditions or regulatory frameworks that limit how quickly that might happen, but developing the technologies while the regulations work themselves out is key. And also using produced water to extract critical minerals. There's some possibilities there. For example, extracting lithium, not currently economic, but maybe at some point in the future as the demand for lithium grows exponentially and the supply only grows linearly. So we have a big separation there and need to meet that demand. In mining, of course, wastewater is a significant issue. So wastewater for mining operations has contaminants in it that are problematic, but we have faculty working on that as well. For example, creating engineered wetlands to treat wastewater from mines that create also a community resource for the surrounding communities. And of course, supply chains and supply chain security is a key element that links all of these things together. So I mentioned some of the technical things that we're working on, but there are also the social issues that are very challenging. So if we're making big changes to the energy economy and that results in increased activity in resource extraction, how do we make sure that that resource extraction occurs in a way that is beneficial to the health and prosperity of communities around those operations? I visited Peru about a year ago and visited with several companies and a couple of government agencies. I asked in that visit, what's the biggest challenge that you face? Is it technical, social, or what? 100% of the answers were that the primary challenge was a social challenge and making sure that communities were well supported around mining operations. So if we're looking to grow mining operations in the future significantly, we have to make sure that those community relations are managed well and that communities benefit from those operations in the future. So that's just a few of the issues that I wanted to touch on. I think I would like to leave the rest of the time for Q&A. Bill, you mentioned that there were a set of pre-submitted questions. I did not see those, so if they were sent to me, I'm sorry. But if we're short on questions, maybe you can read those out, and I'll do my best to try and answer them. Otherwise, we could just leave it for open Q&A.
Yeah, we'll come back. We'll come back to that.
John, I do see a question in the chat from Ben Cross asking, can you also mention any expertise at mines in reducing waste heat from industrial processes?
Well, so this is you've hit me one that I don't have the answer to, Ben. I apologize for that. We may have somebody working on that in particular. I won't be surprised if we do, but I'm not familiar with it. Terrence has a question.
If I can unmute.
There you go.
Thank you, John, for the presentation. I want to compliment you on changing your circle diagram and substituting global energy future for the net net zero carbon center. A lot of people I hear from, the net zero energy transition is like waving a red flag in front of a bull. So, however, it sounds like there's still a lot of GEFI is still based on the human-caused climate theory, which you and I have discussed in the past, but without any experimental data, that's still a theory. The scientific method is observe, measure, theorize, and then experiment. And step 4 has not been done in this process. And the sad thing about all this is that energy transition means more expensive energy. And a lot of the people that I deal with on a daily basis, they're out there busting their butt, working for wages, hourly wages. And, this is a double taxation on them through higher taxes and through higher energy costs. I would urge you to talk to us and let's move on a way to put some certainty into the connection between CO2 and higher global temperatures. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Terrence. So I'm not exactly sure if there was a question in there, but I will try to address the 2 key points you were stating. So you noted correctly that we changed the center of the circle from net zero energy future to global energy future. And I would pose a question. I don't know if anybody will answer. I'll pause for 1 second to see if there's an answer, but I'm curious if anybody on the call would have an idea about why we chose the words net zero energy future for the center of our graphic initially. I don't see an answer, but I will tell you there was a clue in the presentation is because we're using the language that industry is using specifically. And the reason that we changed it is that we recognize that it has in the last maybe 2 years or so gathered a rather negative political connotation. I would say that comes from both sides of the discussion. So if you're looking at people from the side that would say that we need to move to renewables as quickly as possible without regard to anything else, they see net zero as a code word for greenwashing by the oil and gas industry. If you talk to people on the right, they see it as something differently, maybe a goal that's not realistic. So why are we pushing that? Or maybe it's too expensive. So why are we pushing that? So it has some negative connotation from both sides, which was, I would say, inhibiting our efforts to advance the initiative. So that's the reason for changing the center of the graphic. And net zero is not intended to be our brand. The brand is the global energy future. So it made more sense to set it up the way that we did. I don't want this to become a discussion about climate science, but I would just point out that I did send to Terrence and a few others a paper that was produced by the American Institute of Physics, which goes through the history of climate change science and why the scientific consensus, not unanimity, but consensus, is that CO2 emissions are causing warming of the climate now. And I will just say, because I don't want to get into an argument about that or discussion about that, really, because that's not the point of this talk. But I will say that there are 3,000 references associated with that paper. I'm happy to send the link out to this group. You can read that paper and you can look through the references, and many of those references are technical papers that present experimental data, theoretical calculations, modeling results, all kinds of stuff that led to what the conclusions of the IPCC are currently.
John, we got a question coming in from the chat room from Will Grover. is anyone at Mines working on MEOH reforming and H2 separation?
Yeah. So we have some faculty in chemistry that are working on that. Mike McGurk and Rand Richards work on that specific set of materials. Let's see. I see the next one. I'll try to read these, Bill. If I miss something, make sure that you alert me to it. I'll try to answer all of them. So Harry asked if economic considerations are included in the research project. So my personal view, and the view of many at Mines, is that we absolutely should be including economic considerations in any of the solutions that are proposed, and that's part of the goal of trying to look at the whole system from a global perspective. So what we should be doing as a society and as a university, we can help inform that through our research and technical solutions and everything. We should be trying to best understand the system, best understand how the world needs to evolve the energy system, whatever that might look like, and make sure that whatever solutions we choose are optimized for economics and public well-being. So in a large part of the public discussion, that concept is left out, and it's very much presented as either a black or white sort of choice that we can make. And the reality is that it's not a black or white choice. It's very complex. An economic analysis that tries to predict what the best economic solution is going to be suffers from a lot of the same things that the global climate models suffer from, which is there are a lot of assumptions and uncertainties that go into those. But in both cases, people who work on that are doing their best to try to minimize the uncertainties that are associated with those kinds of projections to help us make the best decision as a global society. Let's see. So building construction, push from LEED, and other institution talk net zero in their rating processes. So that's from David. Certainly true. I would say pretty much every industry is talking about net zero, and pretty much every large corporation, not at 100%, but nearly 100% of large corporations in the world are setting net zero targets and using that language specifically. Let's see, Stu, I caution that we beware of assumptions on the basis of net zero, although agreed to by many is the primary reason driving all of this activity. I would challenge Geffen Mines to continue to investigate the validity of the assumption. So we were trying to solve the appropriate problem. So one, we're not a school that's researching or investigating climate change directly, of course, which is what has led to the conclusion by many that we need to be pushing for net zero CO2 emissions. But we do take our cues from the industry that employ our students and the kinds of students that they would like to have us produce that are helping them meet their needs. And this is what they are telling us their needs are. Let's see. John, why no discussion of coal in the electric power industry? This is from Bob's iPad. I don't know who Bob's iPad is. Somebody borrowed your name,
Sharp,
I think. Let's see. So anyway, so that's Bob's point. So well, certainly coal is part of the mix there. It's one of the fossil fuels that we utilize that produces CO2 emissions, and it's part of the discussion, I would say, not as explicit here. The electric power industry. So there is discussion of that, and in the longer form version of this talk that I give, I talk a little bit more about some of the work that's done in power grids and how that's taught to our students. So some of the students working in the Advanced Energy System graduate program are working on power systems. We have a group of faculty in electrical engineering that work on the power systems as well. And a lot of the thinking is, how can you efficiently transform the power grid. Let's see, in what ways are the companies in the oil and gas industry committed to reducing their CO2 emissions as stated in the recent conference? So I guess it may be debatable whether that conference was recent. So that was 2015, relatively recent, I suppose. I will tell you. So one of my jobs is going out and talking to our industry partners, and most of those that I'm talking to are oil and gas companies, and trying to convince them that they should invest their research dollars at mines, and that we're doing stuff that's relevant to what they need. And I will tell you that the majority of the conversations in the last 2 years where they're looking to invest their research dollars in universities are in carbon capture, utilization, sequestration, so CCUS, and low carbon and renewable energy systems, specifically around hydrogen. And so those are, of course, two of the areas that Mines has a lot of expertise. So it's a big opportunity for us to gain research dollars for the research programs that we have. And I will say that these are not new. These both areas of research have been areas of research at Mines for many decades. I did want to point out, so there are a couple of companies currently making claims that they are producing net zero or can produce net zero barrels of oil. Let's say Denbury is a company that makes a more aggressive claim than that. So Denbury is a company that states that they're producing from some of their fields 35% net negative oil, which means that they are, as part of their EOR process, so enhanced oil recovery with CO2, they are injecting 35% more CO2 back into the reservoir for storage than they are removing in the oil itself. Oxy made a counterclaim, so they're competing with each other in this space, that they recently sold the first net zero barrel of oil, and their claim was a little bit different, which was that they were stating through the direct air capture initiative that they have, they'll capture enough CO2 and store that back in the ground to balance the amount of CO2 taken out by the oil that they'll withdraw under this particular sale. So those are just a couple of examples that answer that question. Let's see, Harry's point, good answer on economics. Thank you, Harry. I see that there's a follow-up to us. So let me see what that says before I get too excited. One of the things that has set Mines apart is exactly that element of study and versus purely academic directions. I agree completely, Harry, and I think, you know, our MO is being very practical, trying to produce practical solutions to the problems that the world wants to have solved. And, you know, we have to be realistic, thorough, and come up with grounded, practical solutions. Let's see, where am I at? Was the Mines Global Future Initiative mainly developed to tackle some of the 2030 United Nations sustainability goals and to develop more technologies to achieve net zero emissions by 2050? Or the global initiative is beyond? I would say that the Global Energy Future Initiative was not developed specifically with the United Nations sustainability goals in mind, although I would say that it addresses some of them. I would say that we have had research going on at Mines for multiple decades that is relevant to net zero CO2 emissions. And in part, the Global Energy Future Initiative is to advance our efforts in that area, as well as all of the areas that are related to the energy sector, where we're doing a lot of neat and interesting and valuable research. Let's see, so Martin says, I see Walt Copan on here. Can you talk more about cooperation with NREL? Let's see, Martin, is your question for me or for Walt? I'm sure Walt would be happy to answer that question. I'll give you a brief answer, and then maybe there can be a follow-up with Walt at some point. So we have a lot of cooperation with NREL, and I would say a lot of the research that's going on at mines in the energy space, as you may not be surprised, is done in collaboration with NREL. The hydrogen research that's done on batteries, research that's done on biocapture of CO2, that's done with NREL. We have many, I don't know the exact number, Walt may have it in his head, many joint appointments. So many faculty have joint appointments with NREL and mines. And so it's a pretty close connection. I will say that industry, and particularly oil and gas industry, funds a lot of the research that's done at NREL as well. And mines gets a secondary benefit of that. So a lot of the work that's done at mines via NREL is also funded by oil and gas industry. Let's see. So Natasha says, thanks for interesting talk. Not a question there. You're welcome. Let's see, Harry. Another question from Harry. Somewhat complex question here. Perhaps not one able to answer, but do you feel that the work of GEFI is free and independent to go wherever the facts lead it? That's a simple answer for me, Harry, and I would say yes. Let's see. Martin says for both. I'm not sure what he's talking about. Maybe Martin, if I missed something, you can provide a clarifying question. Let's see. Sarah says, love the discussion of energy, of economics. But what of policy, or thoughts how that would be included, if at all? There's certainly groups doing work on policy here at Mines. So part of that is in the Payne Institute. Part of it is economics and business, not necessarily affiliated with the Payne Institute. I would say that one of the interesting areas of work that they have been publishing on recently, particularly the Payne Institute, is on energy equity as it relates to an energy transition. So they've published a number of papers recently talking about the need for solutions or changes that are not necessarily equally distributed, and recognizes that there are large areas of energy poverty around the world, particularly Africa is one such area. Africa in particular, from one of their recent publications, produces a very small percentage of the global CO2 emissions now, and of course has done so historically. Is it fair to those societies or those countries to limit their energy production from CO2 emitting sources to grow their economies and grow their quality of life? To limit those in the same way that governments are seeking to limit CO2 emissions in the more developed world, who have produced the vast majority of greenhouse gas emissions over many decades. So their argument is no, of course, and how you implement a solution that's not one size fits all in global agreements is quite a challenge, of course. And there are other complicating factors there as well, as many of you know. But that's one area of research that they've been publishing a lot on recently, relevant to policy and certainly relevant to the Energy Future Initiative. Let's
John,
see.
there's one that I think
Yeah.
I'm going to catch back from Jim Emmy. Does GEFI have any unique initiatives beyond supporting current ongoing energy research at mines?
I don't know if you have something specific in mind with that, Jim, but GEFI is specifically focused on energy research at writ large, or not energy research, but energy research and education and communication writ large at mines. So all activities that are associated with the energy system at mines are part of GEFI. It's not really looking outside of that. You may be thinking of something like improving energy efficiency in building construction or something like that. And there's certainly overlap with other areas that are of interest at mines. there. I'm not sure I'm not quite sure if that's what you're getting at, Jim, or if I answered your question or not, but
Yeah, no,
if not,
kind
let
of.
me know.
Yeah, no, I mean, it feels like Gephi is kind of an internal, external clearinghouse for what's going on at mines that's energy related. And maybe it's as simple as that. I'm trying to figure out, are you taking the lead on things, whether it's research topics or infrastructure at mines to better integrate between the nodes? Or do anything, I guess, in a lead role as opposed to kind of being a funding clearinghouse. It wasn't quite clear to me.
Okay, yeah. So there's multi-layered goals with the initiative, as you would have maybe with any large initiative. Certainly a big part of it is as a communications platform. And communications is internal, so we have lots of research going on in all of these areas. Internally, that wasn't well communicated. So this is an effort to try to improve that communication to make sure that we can be as coordinated as possible across campus. So that's one sort of base level of that. A next level would, once that communication is better established, using that to internally to help faculty at mines grow research and respond to some of the research opportunities that are coming, both from government funding perspective and from an industry funding perspective. So that's a next level of intent. And then it's to communicate more effectively to the outside world all of the expertise that we have. So some areas were very well known globally, in particular in oil and gas and on the mining, metals and minerals side of things. We're not as well known globally in some other areas that are in our circle. So CCUS, for example, is one area that we're not as well known in, but have a lot of expertise here. So as a communications platform, it's intended to spread awareness of what the capabilities are at mines. It is not at this stage driving any particular research initiatives other than those that we identify through external partnerships or that we see coming from external funding agencies. So it's largely intended to be a focal point for engagement for both large government initiatives that are coming and industry funding needs that there are. So hopefully, did I get closer to answering your question with that, Jim? Okay, good.
Yeah, thanks.
John, a question from Tom Campbell. Curious how Mines plans to position itself for federal funding from CHIPS and Science Act, Inflation Reduction Act, et cetera, in the energy space.
So Walt could provide a more thorough answer than I can to that, as Walt's office, the VPR's office, is looking very closely at all those opportunities and how much dollars are coming down. I'll just state from a general perspective, Walt's office is combing through those opportunities in great detail and trying to identify what funding is coming and how much is there. And then looking at the various expertise that we have at mines and prioritizing what of those funds we should be going after, either in a leading role, if it's very well positioned for mines, or in a supporting role, if it's something that we're not as strong in, but can play a supporting role for other university or corporate or national lab partners.
Couple questions left, I think, John, and hopefully we can take care of them in the last 7 minutes or so that we have. I see one from Harry. How is Gephi funded, and what, if any, is the relationship with and coordination with the Payne Institute?
Let's see, I'll answer the first part or the second part first. So the Payne Institute, as a group on campus that does research in the energy space, is a part of Gephi. So they're doing relevant work. It is not the main point of Gephi. It's just one part of many. So hopefully that answers that question. The other part is, how is Gephi funded? So Gephi is primarily externally funded. We have a small amount of seed funding that came from the university centrally and from the Mines Foundation to try and help get things started. And so that's paid for some of the things like the video that I just showed you and some of the outreach efforts that we've made so far. I will say that we're doing, for probably all of you have received an invitation already. September 7th and 8th, we're doing the first large event for GEFI, and that's a 2-day event. On September 7th, it's going to be researcher and faculty focused, and it's going to be a little bit different than any other kind of event that we've done in the past. So we've hired a communications coach to help our faculty prepare sort of short, high impact talks and describe their research in an effective way that is not doesn't require an expert to understand well what they're doing and some of the big advances that they're making. We'll also have some keynote talks. Dave Lawler, Mines alum and currently CEO of BPX, he'll be giving one of the keynotes. And then the second day is student focus. So we've had companies submit challenges that they see. Sid Saleh, who does our InnovateX program, is getting student teams together to respond to those challenges. And then those students will make pitches on the second day, the 8th. And then some winners will be chosen. We have some nice prizes for that. So the best, the top pitch gets a $10,000 prize. Second prize is $7,500. Third prize is $5,000. The catch or the string that's attached to that money is that those student groups have to use that money then to advance their idea further, with the hope or the intent that it could lead to a commercializable product somewhere down the road. Let's see. And so we've done a pretty good amount of fundraising from that. We have, I think, 6 corporate sponsors for that event so far. Let's see. You said there was one more question, Bill.
Yeah, the last one. I think we'll say this last question, then we'll be on schedule. William Gramere, as a follow-on to Jim's question, research faculty at Mines tend to wait for RFIs, RFPs from DOE before acting. Can GEFI be more proactive?
Yeah, so let's see. On the industry funding side, we're certainly being proactive, and that's one of the big efforts that we're making from GEFI is to raise industry funding in a proactive way. On the government side, yes, that's certainly true. And Mines has had opportunities to participate in workshops that help shape what some of those DOE calls look like. So DOE and other agencies put together teams and workshops from different sectors of academia and industry to provide input on some of the funding opportunities that are coming up, and then those help shape what those funding opportunities or what the requests for proposals look like. So that's one way that we're being proactive. We're also trying to send a steady stream of Mines faculty to Washington to speak with the congressional delegation and speak with highly placed administrators in the funding agencies. So we're working to be as proactive as we can on several different fronts.
All right. Well, in the interest of time, first of all, John, I want to thank you, and also like to thank all the participants for being here and actively engaging. Very helpful to all. Great to hear about the upcoming event, and I know you're going to be getting some more information out on that. If there are any other questions that we weren't able to get to today, send them our way, meaning through the alumni group or John's department. Don't want to inundate you, John, but we can certainly work with them through alumni, but really appreciate the good information and your participation in this lunch bunch. And I'll hand it back over to Ruth to kind of give the traditional close and what's next. Thanks, John.
Well, I won't
Absolutely.
sing the
Thank you all
fight
for
song
listening.
or anything, but hey, it's the first day of school is coming up, so maybe we should end with the fight song. No, just a quick plug, as I do each month, to let you all know how much we appreciate your interest and support. We welcome your ideas. You can always share those with Bill and me and the rest of our team in the alumni office. Next month's program is coming up on Thursday, September 15th. Of course, Lunch Bunch is always the third Thursday of the month, noon to 1. And next month's program, a little, we'll switch gears here a little bit. We're going to head outside. We're going to meet Austin Dyer, who heads up our outdoor rec center, who has been at Mines now, I think about 1.5 years, has some great ideas, including a global adventures travel program that he's going to be launching for students and for alumni too. We'll learn more about that next month. So we hope you guys join us. Again, it's Thursday, September 15th, noon to 1. You can register in the same place that you registered for today's program, and that is at weare.mines.edu. Click on events, click on Lunch Bunch, and that's where we live. This program has been recorded, as all of our previous programs have been. So if you want to share this with someone, if you want to listen again or forward to a friend, you can find all of our recordings on that same page at the bottom. So thank you all. And thank you, Dr. Bradford. This has been great. So excited to learn what's going on. And thank you to Bill for being our host. So have a great day, everyone, and go Ore Diggers.
Bye, everybody.
Oh.
Take care. Bye-bye.